Beep, 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 beep. Welcome to Court with Jester. How you doing, folks? Right, you can become a Jesterite now. You can join the channel. Come and join us. You know, doing some stuff, having a chat. And you get all the videos up front, which sometimes means you get 5 or 6 of them up front. Oh my God, he's put 5 or 6 up this morning. Because I'm pre-planning, because I've got teaching to do, because my Warrior Teacher Week is coming up, which I'm very excited about. Always good to see them. Come be a Warrior Teacher, be a Jesterite, but most of all share this and click and subscribe and all the usual. I've got something from America. In fact, there's something from California that I think is rather extraordinary that came out on November the 29th. Links in the doobies as usual. Yeah, there is evidence that the tide is turning, and I want to be careful about that, because then you fall into another trap, don't you? Which is always all right. Everything's going to be okay. Everything is not going to be okay. We are 20 years from ending this. All right, just so you know. Because you're going to have to, people are going to be talking about this forever. And the young children are going to have to be talking about how this happened. Right? So in 5 years' time, when we look back and go, right, okay, we were nuts, or 10 years, however long it takes us to come to our senses, somebody's going to have to go, right, we need this in the curriculum so kids don't do it again. So it never, ever happens again. This, eugenics, thalidomide, and lobotomies should be on the national curriculum for people who are 5 or up. That'll get me a smashing from someone, I'm sure. So let's go. New California poll. Bear in mind it is California. This is the important thing here. Oh, California! You know, where you can, you know, shit in the street but can't misgender. That place. Smoky, smoky, puffy, puffy. California, they're all stoned. These nutters that are running the show with all this crap. But so this is what makes this doubly important for me. It reveals a dramatic decrease for support of gender identity policies since 2020. And the first words are, the tide is turning. Stop saying that! As a majority of California voters strongly disagree with allowing men to identify into women's spaces, like changing rooms and shelters, up nearly 20 points in the past 3 years. That's huge, right? Let's continue. A new poll sponsored by WOLF reveals a massive 20-point swing against gender identity policies since 2020. So, you know, WOLF have done this. Bear that in mind. It's their poll. The poll conducted in November of 2023, so it's been released this month, so that's good, by Spry Strategies, with a random sample size of 1,000. Right? So 1,000, which is a random sample size. Likely 2024 general election voters demonstrates a huge shift in public perception of gender issues and protecting single-sex spaces compared to a similar poll conducting in August of 2020. There are links throughout this article for you to follow if you're worried about veracity and, you know, truth. Same thing. Right. The poll also demonstrated a majority of voters support enacting a legal biological definition of woman, such as that offered by the Women's Bill of Rights. You've then got from, thankfully, WOLF, you've got data for that particular poll. You can download the entire poll and have a look and see what it's like. And they've also got past data is available to you as well, if you want to look into more work that WOLF has done. The most important thing about this to remember is it's California. Now, California is ground zero for this, right? If you go to San Francisco, where all the tech companies are, right, they're all nutters. Right, they're all stoned. Okay, like when in San Francisco, when they close the loony bin, lunatic asylum, whatever you want to call it. Right, okay, it's probably a correct term for it. I'm not asked. Right, I'm Batman. That's one of those. They all came out and started living on the streets and cross-dressing. It's the weirdest thing. My mate went there, and he's a raving loon because he's lefty, right? But he went there. You couldn't believe it. He's like, oh my God, you're right. So. Across similarly worded questions, California voters demonstrated a huge turn away from the self-ID policies in prisons, changing rooms, and women's shelters. Voters also increasingly expressed being unsure about self-ID policies, likely as a result of increased exposure to the consequences of these policies over the past 3 years. Strong support for placing male offenders in women's prison was cut nearly in half in the past 3 years, with a 17% increase in strong disagreement with such policies. High-profile cases in California's prison system, like Chandler versus CDCR, may have played a role in increasing awareness of the dangers incarcerated women face when forced to live with male offenders. The largest swing in public opinion over the past 3 years was on the topic of homeless and domestic violence shelters. With 51.6% of California voters in strong support of keeping single-sex shelters, up from, wait for it, 32.8% in 2020. That's an extraordinary shift in public mood, if that's right. Strong support for letting men into women's shelters had dropped drastically from 26.5% in 2020 to only 10.1% by 2023. 10.1 in California. Now do Texas or Florida. In California, down to 10.1%. That's quite extraordinary. Does make one think. Strong support for allowing men into women's changing rooms dropped by half over the past 3 years. It's down to 12% from 24.2%. An overwhelming majority of California voters oppose these policies and wish to uphold single-sex intimate spaces for women and girls. See, the folks are all right. It makes me think if this is correct, because it's a 1,000-person poll, right? Okay, done by Wolf. You know, you could say, oh, well, they have a vested interest. Of course they do, right? But the poll was done, so if you want to find out how and whether it's got any veracity, go and look for yourselves. Test that evidence, yeah? What do we think? What do we know? What can we prove? You test it yourself. Do it personally. But it does make you think, doesn't it? When California, right, which is like ground zero for a lot of this nonsense, right? Bang. The public's all right. In which case, all of the furore, all of the pushing of this by the mainstream media across the West, all of the pushing of this by the likes of the UN and the WHO, yep, all organisations that we previously trusted, UNESCO, all of that lot. In which case, this to me just screams that this is a top-down implementation. It was never about grassroots. Now, you know, you can tell me what you think in the Dubras, I'm sure you will. Well, not the Dubras, the comments. I'm sure you will, all right? It's just extraordinary. Over 70% of California voters state that they define a woman as someone biologically born female. You don't need to say biological. This is the point, isn't it? Just say female. That's it. While only 14% of voters agree that anyone who feels or says they are is a woman. A majority of voters, 54%, support defining the word woman in law to protect women's rights, with only 22.4% of voters opposing such laws. This is an interesting one. You know, cross-dressing as a fetish in men is quite a thing, right? LARPing men. They keep it in the bedroom, you know, or that's what they do generally, you know, and bother their wives and children with it, and the world never knows, sadly. So if only 14% think that they can say they're a woman, let's assume that, you know, a percentage of the population is knicker fumblers in one form or other. 5% say of men. I read it is about that, mind. Right? I reckon 5% of men. That's an interesting statistic, because if only 14% agree, and of that 14%, there's a portion of knicker fumblers in there. Well, it's a question I've never considered, says the man with 240 pairs of Asda knickers in his drawer at home. I haven't thought about that question before. But he's at home, knicker fumbling. Listen, it's, you know, great piece of work from Wolf. It's in the thing. Yeah, you can go and have a look. All right, what a week. What a week. Oh, but I'm all right. The death threat thing, I'm okay. Police have got it. Right? It has form. We've seen it a number of times. This single individual. All sorts. Liverpool, apparently. That's what I'm hearing. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. Wonder who it could be. Oh, gosh, the horror. You go and have a great time. I'm planning a dinner, 70s themed. Black Forest trifle, anyone? I love it. I'm going to make a pineapple and cheese hedgehog. Go on, leave me alone. Ta-da!